So what does it mean for us? So that was the 50,000-foot view. Let's bring the plane a little bit closer to the ground. Let's get our 10,000-foot view. A couple of points that I'd like to make, and it's going to set up our panel here, because they're going to start to share with you some real-world experiences and be a little more practical of how these trends are affecting us. Well, here's what I think, and this is my advice for everyone in the room. We need to listen. So our customers are out there, they're talking on social media. There are many tools, like I mentioned, but if you can find that your distributor customers are using Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, and some of them are increasingly, you need to be there too to see what they're talking about. TED Magazine has set up a forum on the LinkedIn site, and there's some conversations there. And my favorite is, does everyone know about electriciantalk.com? You're all familiar with that? No? I don't see a lot of hands raised. Electriciantalk.com is a must view. So it's a message board where hundreds of contractors are actually on, talking about all the things that annoy them about doing business with the electrical industry, right? But bad news is good news if we have an opportunity to turn it into an opportunity for our businesses. It's electriciantalk.com, and we really need to start listening out there. We also need to leverage our younger employees. Now, I'm a little biased because I'm close to the left end of that graphic. I'm a Gen Xer. But I have seen the power of younger generations. There's the whole story and fable about how I couldn't figure out how to set up my VCR, but my kid figured it out in 5 minutes. Well, increasingly that's happening with social media. And there was a great story from a distributor who I interviewed a number of months ago. And basically a 20-year-old gentleman by the name of Ryan had taken it upon himself to tell his company, his marketing director and CEO, they needed to be on Facebook. They needed to be on Twitter because that's where a lot of their contractor customers were. And they were asking him, hey, how come you guys aren't on Facebook? So through the exploits of this young man, through the power of his senior leadership to listen and say, this is a good idea, State Electric Supply started one of the very first Facebook and Twitter strategies in the electrical industry among distributors. And they have traced it to actual sales. They have seen people attend events who wouldn't have attended otherwise, and they've traced it to ROI there as well. And it's still an experiment, but I think it's fascinating that it took a 20-year-old. He's not legal enough to drink, but he's legal enough to lead a social media strategy for business. And you're going to see that more and more. So call on the younger employees in your companies. They have a lot to add in this dialogue. And if you don't have a lot of younger employees, many of you are located near a college, university, junior college, and you will find, if you just tap into their network, a lot of willing interns who will work for free for the opportunity to pad their resumes, get some real-world experience, and what you have is an opportunity to gain some fantastic insight from the generation that's sort of at the front lines of these changes. Really just a couple more points I wanted to make, and I also want everybody to start thinking, because we're going to have some question and answer time, right? And in fact, the panel is hoping for it, because, right, exactly? Is that right, Dave?
Definitely.
Right. So we're looking for, we were talking about what are the softballs, I'm going to throw them soon, and then we want a few curveballs, hopefully, from the audience. So this one's a little bit of a curveball. In my point of view, I think we need to start to leverage all of our employees, not just the young ones, but all of them, because somewhere today, guaranteed, there's a sales folk in this room, and they're trying to break into a company somewhere out there. And they have not been successful, but there's an employee at their company whose cousin, who they're connected to through LinkedIn or Facebook, or their best friend from high school, works at that company. In fact, they might even be a key influencer of the business decision. But if we don't tap into our employees' own networks, we're going to miss out on potential opportunities. And this is a little bit of a tricky situation, right? Because so many of us recognize we can't allow all of our employees to be checking their Facebook and LinkedIn all day at work. And many companies struggle with the balance of, we need to allow some access, because increasingly those who figure it out are going to have a competitive advantage. Balance that with, of course, we don't want people scurrying around the web all day. That could lead to decreased productivity. So it's a challenge and a balance, and all of our panelists are aware of it. And we don't have the answers, but we know that increasingly the answer is going to be more access, not less, because there are gold nuggets hidden in people's connections and networks. And the companies who figure out how to take advantage are going to be the companies who gain an advantage. And just one more point I'd really like to make before we look to the future is we need to experiment. So Forrester did a study of B2B companies, and they projected by 2014 there will be an increase of 490% in the money spent on social media, almost 500%. So how are all these B2B companies? This is not Pepsi and Coke. These are business-to-business organizations. How are they doing that? Well, what they're doing is they're experimenting. The rub is that other industries have been experimenting for 4 and 5 years now, just like Blendtec. So we are a little behind the technology curve in some aspects. And that's why one of the rules of thumb that I like to share with folks is 15% is kind of a magic number. If you can spend 15% of your time innovating, spend 15% of the time you would normally spend in traditional sales and marketing using social media, setting up a Facebook page, looking at your LinkedIn contacts or those of your company, we think there's a great opportunity for you to grow, learn, optimize what you've learned, and continue. It's not easy, and we're going to talk about how you can make that happen. But I think it is absolutely necessary in this day and age. And I see a couple of heads shaking, so I'm excited. So the last slide before the panel is my little joke. I tell people that I often travel to the future. And as fast as technology is evolving, sometimes it feels like that. Sometimes it feels like that. If I were to travel to the future of the electrical industry, I would say that probably of all the trends that are bubbling up right now, the most important is the move to mobilization. Going back to the beginning, you saw all across the Citizens Bank ballpark last night, hundreds of fans getting out their iPhones, getting out their BlackBerries, and checking out as news spread around the country and around the world. And it's a scene that you're going to see more and more. And in fact, there's probably a couple of people right now who are checking on their BlackBerries. That's okay. This is the one presentation where you are allowed. You're just proving my point is all. So I encourage that. But in all seriousness, in our own industry, we're starting to see on the left, it's an example of an application called Do You Bend Pipe? It's an app for the iPhone that actually allows contractors to automate the process of taking the measurements of how to bend conduit. So you can actually download that for free. And I always recommend that we find ways for business to partner with these little technology companies that are producing this. There's probably a great partnership opportunity to say to these guys, hey, we'll buy all of your copies, right? We just want to brand it with our name, and we want to give it out to contractors around the country. That would be a great opportunity right there. And on the right, increasingly you're going to see the enterprise resource management software, our back-end systems integrating not with an old clunky computer on someone's desktop, but on an iPad application that will actually allow you in the field to check the warehouse, get it on the truck before you've even left the job site. And the more that happens, the more it stands to change how we think about communications.